Hello, good morning. In a small village on the outskirts of Lincoln, East Midlands in the United Kingdom, there is a 24-year-old man called Adam Grazer. Now, he works in a fish and chip shop. His father, Alan, works in the same shop. So does Alfred, his grandfather. 3 generations of Grazers working in the same chip shop. Now, the weirdest part is that they don't even own the shop. No, each of the Grazer men has come to the shop as a teenager looking for a holiday job, and they never left. The BBC heard of their fascinating situation and traveled up north to interview them. The host asked Adam whether he had always wanted to follow in his pa and grandpa's footsteps. He said, "Well, I wanted to be a stockbroker when I was in school." "So why didn't you?" asked the bemused journalist. "Well, because there's no stock exchange in the village, is there?" quipped Adam glibly. Now, the BBC man was still confused. "So why didn't you just move?" he asked. Adam was quiet for several seconds. "Never thought of that," he said with a smile. Now, I remember smiling too at the young man's total lack of ambition for about 5 seconds before I was struck by the thought that, so many of us are just like Adam in our own way. For many of us, the only thing separating us from our dreams and destinies is movement, or a lack of it. The only thing standing between what we have and what we want is movement. So why don't we just move? For all the years you've worked in your office, you've complained to everyone who will listen about how inefficiently things are done, how management doesn't understand the staff, how they don't understand the customer, how they're wasting resources, how they keep promoting people who don't know what they're doing. You attend staff meetings, you sit in the back rolling your eyes at every mediocre proposal, every idea, every contribution that your colleagues make. But not once will you actually open your mouth and say a single word. Vacancies in management come up every other month. Opportunities to actually step up and fix the problems you've been complaining about your entire career. But you don't even pick a form, let alone fill and submit it. You just sit at your desk for ages, mentally restructuring the company. You think you can make a difference, but you're just sitting there dreaming about it. You see the problems, you know the solutions, and you're sitting there, wondering when someone will be bold enough to come and make a move to change things. So why don't you just move? You turn on the radio and there's a bank advert talking about some new product. It sounds wonderful. The interest rate is great. You don't need much to qualify. You think about your own bank. Their service is horrendous. You queue for hours and you are rewarded with rudeness and a total lack of concern for your needs. Every month, they sit on your wages for a few days before they release it into your account. You try to use your ATM card and it never works. You try to pay for lunch with your debit card and it always gets declined no matter how much money you have in there. You call to complain about it and nobody answers. All these thoughts pass through your head while the advert is playing. But once it's over, you do nothing. You hate your bank and there are better ones out there, so why don't you just move? You've belonged to the same political party since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. For decades, you've stood for them, defended them, campaigned for them, voted for them. Leaders, executives, flag bearers, manifestos have all come and gone, but you have remained steadfast. Whatever has been done in the name of this party, you have supported. Even when you've known it was wrong, you have defended it. Even when their actions have cost you as a citizen, you have still defended them. And when their acts have been utterly indefensible, you've either stayed silent or you found some worse action of your political opponents to make noise about instead. Yet deep down, when you sit quietly by yourself, you know right from wrong. You know your people are crooks. You know they are in it for themselves and not for the nation, not even for you. Yet you continue to associate yourself not just with their past misdeeds, but with every future misdeed they will commit. You know they are wrong, so why don't you move? My dear friend, there's absolutely no justification for settling in life. There are millions of us doing jobs we don't like, dating people we don't love, living in homes we hate, fighting for causes we don't believe in. And all we have to do is make one decision to do one thing. Move. Get up and move. Don't just think about it. Move. Move from what you have to what you want. Move from what you hate to what you love. Move from where you are to where you belong. Nobody ever achieved their dream by doing nothing about it. Even lottery winners had to first buy tickets. So let's do this, people. Let's make a decision. Let's own our destinies. Let's change our lives. Let's move. My name is Kojo Yankson, and I'm just one move away from my destiny. Good morning, Ghana.
Aviation Minister Joseph Kofi Adda has hinted government has not done any viability study on the Cape Coast airport it intends to build. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, last week announced the Cape Coast airport was in the pipeline. President Akufo-Addo, in an interview on a Cape Coast-based radio station, confirmed this position of government, adding that the Aviation Ministry had done a feasibility study for the project. However, the Minister for Aviation, Kofi Adda, speaking on PM Express last night, told Evans Mensah government does not know how much the airport will cost.
Well, the feasibility study has been gathering the data. I've been out there with my team. We've picked up all the basic data we need. The full feasibility study as a completed report is different from picking all the data that will build into a feasibility study.
So the work that you did was what exactly?
The work we did was to go acquiring the land, agreeing on the specifications.
We've acquired the land?
Employers' requirements that are required to build the airport. These are all the things we do.
Sorry, so you've acquired the land for the airport?
Yes.
What would it cost us to build the airport?
I wouldn't know, but it would depend on the person who would come and how big he wants it to be. It could range anywhere from $50 million, $60 million to $100 or something $1 million. Depends on the size of it.
So by the time that you were announcing the airport, you didn't know the cost?
Oh, you wouldn't know the final cost, no.
Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you announce a big project?
You would never know the total cost of any big project.
But that's what feasibility studies do. They tell you a lot.
I'm telling you that what we did
viability. So have you done a viability assessment?
You are getting me to repeat myself.
I'm just asking about that. Have you done a viability assessment?
About the developer will have to come and do that.
So we don't have a viability assessment?
We cannot go about doing everything for partners who will come and...
So as of today, you don't know whether it is commercially viable to have an airport in Cape Coast or not?
All the airports you cannot really tell. There's always a viability gap on all the airports in Ghana. No airport is viable in Ghana.
Now let's take you to the Bono East region. It's all residents of the Nkranza municipality have expressed shock at a recent survey conducted by the Ghana Health Service, which places Nkranza as the main town community with the second highest prevalence rate of HIV/AIDS in Ghana. They attributed poor parental control and low sensitization as major contributory factors to the increasing number of HIV cases in the area. Correspondent Nasabit visited the community and came through with this report.
A recent HIV surveillance report conducted by the Ghana Health Service revealed that the Nkranza South municipality of the Bono East region is placed second after Mamobi in terms of communities with the highest prevalent rate of the HIV/AIDS. This afternoon we are here in the Nkranza municipality to engage community folks on their reactions so far as this particular news item is concerned.
Honestly, we've been shocked upon hearing this, and this is a disaster. To hear a place like Nkranza being second on the HIV prevalence rate is not normal at all. So honestly, we are shocked at this.
A couple of them attributed poor parental care plus the limited education so far as HIV/AIDS is concerned as the contributing factors to the increasing rate of HIV/AIDS in the Nkranza municipality.
Mimi huni se Nkranza hankasa ni youth no. One, omo dressing ye.
The dressing of our youth is bad. Like, and again, there's poor parental care and increase in broken homes.
And broken homes, so me who say a dozen. And as a child and as a young girl, what is so? None mama and papa and temati.
Such young people who are affected by broken homes will do everything possible to survive by sleeping around with men.
The best no be ya onim say de be boa ne ho. Ama e bia watimi akọ school no yes ode ne ho be ma mema.
AIDS commission no omunyo omodwuma yi. The AIDS Commission is not doing its work in terms of sensitization. In the past, we all participated in such exercises, but there is nothing like that now on TV or radio.
If it is not on, it is not in.
Again, the relationship between parents and their children is very low. Parents do not care anymore about the upbringing of their words. This should serve as a lesson to the young girls who easily give in to strangers. They do not heed to advice at all.
They, however, have suggestions on what needs to be done to bring down the number of cases that have been recorded here.
Always say, your baby, say, Oko citizen.
If you get to the city centers, you find condom cages placed at vantage points, but that's not the situation here.
What I say? I have been here. Grass of baby.
My parents, no. I also muketa for money because so far as I will not
your responsibility.
And in the parents, so money because this time around, no.
Now in relationship with adults, so when we intensify education, people will be sensitized. Those who cannot abstain from sex should also resort to protecting themselves by using condoms.
That is by using condoms to protect yourself.
From the Nkranza municipality here in the Bono East region, my name is Anas Sabit for Join Us.
A good report there, but let's move on. For many years, people in Bontebo walked long hours, risking encounters with snakes and other reptiles just to fetch drinking water. Now, a borehole constructed by Pumasido Ghana Limited, producers of cowbell, has become a game changer for a community in desperate need. Here's a report by Justice Beidu.
Forgive Pogli hasn't made this journey in a while. Once upon a time, this was a daily routine. Now the road leading to the stream is bushy. She and her friend Millicent have come here because I've asked them to show me the routes that they walked for years to get water.
We have been seeing some snakes, they said cobra. We have been seeing them there, and the green ones. We have been seeing them also there. So when we go, sometimes they'll be in the water or they are on top of the leaves before we go. And so when we see them, then we run back home. Sometimes if you see it, you yourself cry, you'll be afraid.
This is Bontebo, the community where Forgive comes from. No electricity, a rundown road network, and no mobile telephony network. This is nothing different from what an average Ghanaian village looks like. It's in the Nkwanta South district in the Oti region.
We've been looking for this for a very long time at Bontebo Junction. It has been their worry, looking for this pipe. Because of the situation, they've not been giving them.
It is the reason why villagers are gathered here to show what the change means to them. In 2019, Pumasido Ghana Limited built this borehole here.
Water is also key in that, also providing health, because you have a lot of waterborne diseases that most of our consumers are affected by. If you look at most of the statistics from the public health sector, waterborne diseases are one. Water and foodborne diseases are quite frequent, which leads to diarrhea and even sometimes can be fatal. So water is critical in nutrition and health. And of course, it's important for the consumers to enjoy our products. It's quite a tall list. A few to mention: New Ebrim, Free Boy, somewhere in the Ashanti region, in the Laura district, Botibo in Kwanta South, Bassa in Bilsa South, and Pitinga also in Bilsa South, and a number of other communities, some I cannot recollect off my head. And these are really deprived communities where it was a struggle to get clean potable water for their daily use.
When I started campaigning, the people at Bontibo Junction said I should try to give them borehole. So when I saw them giving them the borehole, I was so happy because it's a dream come true. In the past, the government have been promising us that they will build a pipe for us, but they didn't do it. So when this man came, he was working a company with Calba. So when he came and told my grandfather that he will build a pipe, we did not believe him.
As the man came, that he is coming to dig the borehole, we couldn't believe him because many people said it. Even Kapu Akufalo said that he will bring light and the borehole here, but he couldn't. So as the man came, we couldn't believe him.
It was in response to many stories that the company had seen, especially from Joy News, on many communities across the country that did not have water. Promasido is aiming at building 20 similar boreholes across the country. Like Forgive, the people of Bontibo would now have a different story to tell. They would now drink safe water, thanks in part to the benevolence of a company that has put part of its wealth back into a community in desperate need. Justice Bedu, Joy News, Bontibo.
Great story there. And we have to thank Promasido Ghana for helping us alongside Joy News to bring you some of these stories, but also providing the right solutions. But now before the news, before we go though, the United Civil Society Organization for National Development, with funding from Care Denmark, has donated personal protective equipment to people with disabilities, female-headed households, CHIPS compounds, and public toilets in 5 districts in the Western region to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The items included 150 Veronica buckets, 80 gallons of disinfectant, among many others. Correspondent Natalia Kwansa brings us more.
The executive director of Ozone, Wisdom Kweku, says though the number of active cases in the country has decreased, health facilities need PPEs to store any turn around in future.
When it comes to COVID, you can never just say you are satisfied. Because when you say you are satisfied and you go to sleep, it's like the thief. It will just come around all of a sudden and then take you by surprise. So there is the need for us to continue to make sure we fight against it. For Ghana currently, I think our case count is around 43,841. For the recoveries, we are over 42,000, which I think is very remarkable. I think today we recorded about 72. Having said all this, I don't think, like I said earlier, we can go to sleep. When we even look at the Nzima East, where we are doing the presentation today, even though we are looking at 4 districts, these are communities that if you want them to purchase PPEs and the rest, you may find only few of them who will be able to do it. But we think that if you don't handle it well, when one person gets it, it is easy to spread out. And so let us see if we can target all those vulnerable groups that may not be able to afford, so that those who can afford and those who cannot afford, together, when we put them together, we are able to tackle the disease holistically.
Dramani Kobna, Environmental Health Officer of Nzima East, is worried the numbers could upsurge through the use of public toilets due to non-adherence to COVID-19 protocols.
Today, what we are seeing, as I said, we are happy, especially the public toilets. That is where, it's a personal hygiene. That is where most people go and maybe soil themselves with feces. Now, as these things are going there, it is going to also help them in sanitation or the personal hygiene. They just go there because the one that were distributed, some of the, as they said, they have done their baseline studies. Some of the public toilets did not get this kind of PPEs. So as they are going to substitute it, it is going to help everybody, because in sanitation, if I'm affected, likely the third person will be, or the second person will be affected.
Some community members who spoke to Joy News were elated. Help had come at last.
This thing, it really means a lot to us, because most of us, we can't even afford the Veronica buckets and the liquid soup. So this thing will go a long way to help out.
We know that COVID has no vaccine, COVID has no medicine, and so the only way we can prevent ourselves is to wash and sanitize. And so this thing will come to support us to, prevent ourselves from the COVID.
Oxon is operating in 6 coastal districts and Wasa Amenfi East, all in the western region.
Well, that's it for the latest news updates. But we do have more news. We have a couple of the newspapers in the studio. Myself and Mamavi will do justice to that after this break. I told you we'll be doing the newspapers next, and Mamavi is here, full of newly acquired knowledge over the last 24 hours.
Welcome to the month of September.
Yeah, it's a great month. Yeah.
Yes, the 9th month, the month of birth. So if you've been hoarding a lot of things inside, if you've been having a lot of expectations, if you've been dreaming, and you believe indeed that this is the 9th month of birth, then something good is going to come out of this month. Just say amen to that. Amen. Believe and have faith.
Fantastic. That's a very progressive thought.
Well, we have no choice, do we?
Yeah.
But we've come very far. It's the September, October, November, December, and we.
Do I have to say that this year
ending
has run
this year,
so
2020?
fast?
We wanted to run really fast. I mean, who thought that we will be welcomed sometime in the course of the year, very early on, with COVID-19, and we can't wait for it to simply go away. Some of us are hoping that 2020 will go away with COVID-19. So just as it came, we want it to also go away. Thank you for joining us. If you missed the AM News, we're going to be doing the review. We've got a guest joining us, the Executive Director of Amnesty International, the local chapter, Robert Samanfo, will be joining us for the review. Oh, there you are. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mama V.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so we're just going to run through. Let's check out what's making headlines, and then after that, we will all make our picks, and then we'll also do myjoyonline.com. So why don't I just start with the Daily Graphic newspaper, guys? Front page of the Graphic. Reopening schedule of pre-tertiary institutions, private schools disappointed. It comes with a picture of the education minister, but he is not saying he's disappointed. It's just the private schools who are disappointed. Their issue is not necessarily the same as the public schools. Roland was saying when he opened the show, they don't have issues with spacing. And so they didn't understand why the decision was made to completely, I guess, and then, push reopening to January 2021. But if you read the story, the explanation from the Ghana Education Service, we'll get a lot more of it later this morning, is that the president was putting the emphasis on lives and not livelihoods. So more of this in the paper. Government injects 800 million Ghana cedis into NIB operations. Coalition calls for inclusion of Black Shield capital in bailout. 10 million Ghana cedis earmarked for businesses in Zongo communities in 5 northern regions. If you check the center spread out, and that's where I'm going next, in the center spread of the paper, President lays foundation for metal casting factory. Passengers to pay 865 Ghana cedis for COVID-19 tests. National Children's Day commemorated. Well, this story about the COVID tests with the passengers is because today is the first. Remember, the president indicated that the airport will be open for international travel today. So starting today, the airport will begin to get busy. We'll see. But what people have been talking about is that 150 COVID tests. On the back page, survey on malaria prevalence in children begins tomorrow. 2 persons shot dead at Abosokai Homowo celebration. It says the Kaneshie police are attempting to unravel the circumstances that led to the shooting of 3 men at Abosokai during the celebration of the Homowo festival in the area last Saturday. Okay, should I let you guys, maybe Robert, you can come through with the papers that you have.
Okay, good morning. I have the Finder, and prominent on the page is NSS Post 86,000.
Robert, you can go ahead.
Okay, sure. 86,478 service personnel, which is an interesting thing because immediately this time starts, all sorts of interesting people get to know where they want to do their national service, and they start asking for reposting and all. Let's hope it doesn't happen this time.
Oh, it will. It has already.
First Atlantic Bank to be transformed into a global bank out of Ghana. We are looking forward for this because especially when a lot of our local banks have been closed down and all of that, it's always inspiring to hear that something good is coming out of a local bank. There's also 10 million for Zongo businesses operating in northern Ghana, which is also very good to hear, especially coming from that side of the world. And we're hoping that government links this to ensuring that women are not lynched as witches, so that people will stop it, knowing that there's money coming along with it. No longer queues at Ghana Card Mop-Up registration centers, which can be found on page 13 of the Finder. Also, a foundry and 2 centers key to industrialization drive by Nana Addo on page 8 of the Finder. I also have the daily guide, which has on the front page, MPP chases NDC over manifesto. We know that the MPP has already launched its manifesto, and NDC is yet to do theirs. They postponed their initial launch, which we wondering why. And we hope that it's launched soon so that we can know the issues and vote on issues and interrogate those issues before we vote. There's also massive disinfection for airport reopening. We saw the president going to visit the airport not long ago, and the story can be found on page 6 of the daily guide. And then a Japan deal has come to stay. This has been an interesting discussion ongoing, especially among the space of the minerals and people who are interested there. We heard the NGOs who are against this deal and all of that is going on. We hope that we get the best out of this discussion and ensure that this issue does not get out of hand, and we gain as Ghanaians out of the mineral resources that we have. I think those are the papers. I think I have also the Daily Statesman. Mahama is confused. That can be found on the first page. MPP urges Ghanaians to vote for Akufo-Addo. And don't ignore COVID-19 safety protocols, President urges on page 2 of the Daily Statesman. And we hope that we don't lose hope, because a lot of people are not using their face masks if you walk in town and various places. I think even certain institutions have relaxed their protocols. People can enter restaurants and other places without face masks or even washing their hands. And I hope that as the president has admonished us to do that, people will pay attention and do so. I also have Jordan Ayew response to transfer advice from Diseli and Boateng. I am not a very good person at sports, so I don't have any comment on these areas.
The way you pronounce the Marseille Diseli, I knew that. Don't like sports. But don't worry, you are forgiven.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
But that's okay. Are you done?
Yes, I think I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done for now.
So let me do the dispatch, and then Mamavi will do the last paper, one of the main dailies we have in Ghana, Ghanaian Times. So the dispatch has on the front page, Will 2020 voter turnout be higher than 2016? Big question, but we have more people on the roll now, so my supposition is that why not? How MPP and NDC can get 100,000 votes more in weaker areas. Afenyo Makin also wins defamation case against NDC candidate. We do have reopening of KIA. Government disinfector, Paul, we brought that to you as well. Ghana responds to Nigeria's allegations, and we do know what the issues are with enforcing the GIPC local retail laws. It's actually almost like a initial nonchalance or non-enforcement of those, and now all of a sudden we've woken up into our senses to think we can just right our wrongs in just a matter of weeks. Well, Mamavi, you have the Ghanaian Times.
I do. Front page of the Ghanaian Times. President lays foundation stone for construction of Foundry Machine Tooling Center. Rally behind a Japa deal as CVM urges Ghanaians. Government fails to allocate funds to GIIF for second year running, according to PIAC. Full story is on page 11 in the paper, the Ghanaian Times newspaper of today. Just trying to see if I can share just some little details on that. It's for the second consecutive year, the government has not made any allocation from the annual budget funding amount to the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, despite the fund raking in $5.5 million returns on its investment in the $30 million KIA Terminal 3 project in 3 years. The rest of it, you can catch up. And then Kotoka Airport undergoes disinfection in readiness for reopening today. Reopening of airport amid COVID-19. Ghana tightens measures. 80 PCR test kits deployed at Kotoka to test 1,200 new arrivals every day for COVID-19. We're yet to see how busy our airports would be following the reopening today. On the back page, stop selling water, according to the Ghana Water Company. Also, Bongo DCE appeals for land for government projects. Pretty much the headlines, front and back. There are some crime stories, if you like. Kofi Ampons, a 60-year-old farmer, has been stabbed to death at Jinejine in the Brekum West district of the Bono region. The deceased, according to the police, went to the farm last Friday morning but did not return, prompting family members to follow up to the farm only to find his body. Rest of the sad story is in the pages, well, page 3 exactly. And then an unidentified man believed to be a robber was killed and tied to a wooden electric pole at Nankabamu within the Breman UGC area of the Swami municipality of Ashanti. The victim was stripped, had injuries on the body, and was tied with rope from the neck to the feet to an electric pole. Some residents who spoke to the Ghanaian Times said they heard someone wailing for help around 4 a.m. on Sunday, but they were afraid to go out of their rooms to rescue him, suspecting he was a robber. And then this story that I was hoping that Robert will help us with, especially because of where he's coming from. The Savannah Region Police have arrested 5 persons, including the chief of Simpuni and his linguist, for allegedly brutalizing 60-year-old woman, Merit Ibrahim, who they suspected of being the witch. The 5 currently in police custody were suspected to have participated in beating the woman accused of being a witch. This is the same region that's not too long ago. We had another woman, a 90-year-old, who was sadly lynched. And same region, similar incident coming out. Only difference is that this time around, she was rescued early enough and she survived the attacks. But we were wondering, Robert, yesterday we started this conversation. You know, when the incident broke with Madame Ikea Dente, we talked about it, but apparently not enough education was done on this.
Yes, and for some of us who were concerned, especially about the manner in which Ikea Dente's case was handled. And that is clearly and the outcome of how the case was handled. If we saw the urgency that the government handled the situation, that would have given people some sort of warning or fear to do it again. But because of the way it was handled as if it is one of the cases. The president announced we are forming a foundation and he's contributing to that foundation. It didn't send a signal of seriousness to people. It didn't send a signal of something that the president sees as an urgent thing that he's handling, or even any of the bodies that are responsible, like the Ministry of Gender or Ministry of Interior, to make statements and to take actions that will send a clear signal to people that we do not tolerate this. If you do this, you'll be punished. And interestingly, we had a meeting with the Minister of Gender yesterday to see the way forward and what they are doing. And it came out clear that in these instances, when people are arrested, some of the things that happen is that the community leaders, which is the chiefs and other people, go to plead with the chief, the police, that please leave our people and we'll settle this at home. And then they call the MPs and the other politicians who also get involved, and they take the people out of the police. So there's no seriousness attached to the case, because I know if I do it, my uncle is the linguist. He will speak to someone and they'll release me. So there's no seriousness attached to this case, and that is why we are seeing this repeated again. And finally, the idea that more women are suffering, and we've identified that at least 2 people are being lynched every day. Because if you listen to Ipia Dante's case, it's about 16 women who were abused and tortured, but only because Ipia Dante died. That is why we heard it. And somebody recorded it. This incident, if the medical officer did not record it, we wouldn't have seen it. And it would have gone under the carpet and nobody would have heard about it. So it's a very serious case where elder women are really suffering in that part of the country.
I'm just tempted to ask, how do we stop this? Because we certainly don't want this.
That is what I mentioned, that the people in authority who have the power to make powerful statements and send strong signals haven't done that. And unless they do that, we will still have these incidents happening, because most of the incidents are done or the things are perpetrated by young people. Ipia Dante's case, they said it was the youth of the community who believe that a witch has stunted their progress. And so they need to find someone to be responsible. In the same case of Auntie Mary, which we are talking about now, who was butchered, she also had young people who said their parents have sent them to do that, or some people have gathered them to do that. So it's clear that unless we have a strong statement from the people, and like I mentioned, this 10 million that we say is going to the north, why don't we tie it like how World Bank ties conditionalities to our funding that they are giving us? All these things are measures that can be taken to ensure that these people listen and they change their mind. And because it's cultural, it is very difficult. It will take a long time to change minds, even if we start education today. But in the process of changing minds, we realize that people will still suffer. Some women will be brutalized. How do we ensure that within the period where we are transforming culture and changing minds, no woman gets brutalized because somebody dreamt and saw them in their dream, and so they call them a witch and butchered them or killed them?
Absolutely. Roland, what's your pick?
My pick is on the companies that are in liquidation, also being investigated by the Security and Exchange Commission. And we know that customers of Blackwell, who that used to be called GoCo Securities, currently have concerns about Black Shield, that they hadn't been consulted in the processes and the announcement that had been made by the Security Exchange Commission. Now, based on the act for which the Securities and Exchange Commission is acting, upon which it is taking its own decisions because they have appointed an entity or someone to take up that responsibility, they are not supposed to consult them. They are rather supposed to confer with the management or the defunct management of the various entities. And that, I think, needs to be communicated not only by the Securities and Exchange Commission, but also the media when we're covering the stories, because then we create the impression that some wrong has been done to the customers of these institutions. Indeed, according to the investigations that have been undertaken by the Security and Exchange Commission, the wrong rather has been done to the customers by the management and shareholders of these institutions. And that has to be laid bare so that we know that the actions have been taken there is the effort and the processes to ensure that they recover their deposits to them, but they have to take their time and make sure that they follow due process, and that will be given to them at the end of the day or ultimately.
Okay, so just some of the things that the customers have also been saying, apart from what you've just said, and I'm reading from page 13 in the Daily Graphic, because there was a meeting yesterday. They call themselves the Coalition of Aggrieved Customers of the Collapsed 50 Fund Management Companies. And they have, for instance, they insisted that contrary to claims by SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the latter had full access to the information needed on the defunct company to include its customers in the bailout package. We consider the reason cited by SEC to exclude some of the customers from the payment package as a deliberate ploy by the government to divert the attention of the unsuspecting public for neglecting its responsibility to innocent Ghanaian customers who have fallen victim to the government's poor handling of the financial sector cleanup exercise. So I guess bottom line is these are customers who've had their funds locked up and they need it and they want to be included in the bailouts. That's where it comes to. Right. But I guess I get the understanding. Let's spell out the processes to them so they can understand. But if you have your money locked up, Roland Walker, I mean, you really don't care about processes.
Yeah,
Once
definitely.
you hear there is a certain package, you want to be part of it. Robert, is there a pick from you?
Yes, I just wanted to go back to Daily Guide. On the front page, you see Mahama goes dirty on Nana and Baumia. As we're going towards the elections, I think it's important that we make it clear that we as citizens are not going to give way for any sort of politics of insults or any issue that will allow certain people to start bringing sorts of violence during elections. I think we have to admonish our politicians to play it fair, give us the issues and let us listen and decide, rather than calling names and making it look dirty. Look, we are educating young people to get involved in politics. And it's important that we ensure that we do things that will look good and will make politics look attractive, and also not make it look as if it's a place where you jab at people and you insult people. I think it's important that our key politicians who are going for these elections make this election fair, clean, bring out your issues, and let's all listen and vote on issues. I think that's one thing. And then also the kidnapper, on the same Daily Guide, kidnapper demanded 5,000 Ghana cedis as ransom. It's interesting that we are still having these issues coming up. We were hoping that our police would take these issues seriously when they happened before. So if this is still going on, we are calling on the IGP that we don't want these things to happen, especially during election period. In certain countries like Nigeria and Mexico, these things happen during election period and things to threaten politicians and all the others. So we hope that this thing will be nipped in the bud so that we don't hear security issues that make us feel unsafe.
That'll be it for now. We have to break for sports. Today's your birthday, Jonathan Asante Ochre. You are a senior lecturer, the Department of Classics and Philosophy, the University of Cape Coast. I hope that you're going to enjoy your time. You're in Cape Coast, the Central Regional Capital. It's where the new airport will be built. So, Charlie, very soon you'll be flying to Accra, rough. Joe Asante Ochre, enjoy your time.
Okay, listen, Robert, we thank you for joining us on the review this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us as well. Apologies for waking you up rather very early. So you can go back, you can catch some 30-minute sleep.
Later or after.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me. Roland.
Yeah, bro.
Okay,
enjoy your day.
We've got plenty of headlines though on myjoyonline.com. Just visit our page. Coming up next is sports. First round of the US Open. All the action right here on Joy News, plus some other stories. Welcome to Ask the GES. Following that announcement by the president, JHS2, SHS2 students go back to school next month. But the rest of our children in primary, those down there, will be going back in January 2021. That's similar as Kenya also has it. But there are some concerns, there are some worries, people have raised issues. So today we have the Ghana Education Service in the studio. and we will want you to put your questions across to Mr. Anthony Boateng, my guest. He's a Deputy Director General in charge of management services with the Ghana Education Service. We'll go on Facebook as well. So if you want to post a comment, visit our page, the Joy News page on Facebook, and add your question or your comment, and he will clarify it on the show. I want to say good morning to you. Thank you always for making time to answer our questions.
Thank you for having me here.
I remember the president saying that this was a Ghana Education Service, as in a recommendation by the Ghana Education Service. So can you explain what went into this whole discussion and why some of our children are going back to school next month?
Very well, thank you, and good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. I'm sure we all recall the issue of COVID-19 and how it has affected our academic program. And therefore, as part of efforts of government to ease the restrictions imposed as a result of the outbreak of the COVID-19, government decided that schools should reopen. But from the word go, the fundamental consideration has been how to ensure that these children or schools reopen in safety and in comfort for everybody. The children, the staff, and even parents at home. And therefore, all the issues around the discussions have been, how do you ensure that you gradually return academic life to normal, whilst at the same time ensuring that the children are safe and secure, as well as the staff. And then also to make sure that parents are comfortable in releasing their children to go to the school. So these have been the considerations that have gone into every decision that have been made in relation to whether or not schools should reopen and who should not go to school.
So JHS 1 and SHS 1 students, what happens to them?
Unfortunately, they will have to stay at home until January next year. What it's going to mean is, what it means is that the second semester of SHS 1 and the third term of JHS 1 will have to be looked at again. What will happen is that SHS 1, the second semester of SHS 1 will be deferred until January. Then the third term of JHS 1 will also be deferred to January.
Why couldn't they do online, as we've seen some other schools do, just to complete the session?
Thank you very much. It is, and it will have been a very excellent option under our circumstances. But you know, we live in a country where we have challenges, especially even with internet and with access to some of these online programs. Several of them can have it, but not everybody can have it. And you will agree with me that when it comes to those levels, the spread of schools is throughout the country, in every corner, in every hamlet, and therefore it might not be very equitable for every child of that level to access those facilities. There are some people who do not even have access to even television or even online portal and services. And therefore, it will not be fair to say that every child should have access to use those mediums. And that is the issue.
So from kindergarten through to JHS 1 and SHS 1, they're all staying till 2021. Does it mean the calendar itself, the academic calendar, has been scrapped? Have we changed it? Is this a special situation? Are we going to return to the September academic calendar?
For now, what I will say is that let's focus on January. Let's focus on how do we deal with the circumstances we find ourselves. As we move on, if it becomes appropriate to revert to September sometime in the future, we will look at it.
So as it is, we've changed?
As it is, yes, we have changed from January now.
So from January, where would the children be? Will they be continuing from where they ended Or what? I mean, are we starting a fresh calendar?
Right. What will happen is that, if you remember, we have recently introduced what we call the standard-based curriculum. And as we have always insisted, the education delivery under that curriculum is about building blocks. There should be one phase, then a second phase, then a third phase, and the rest. So what is going to happen is that in January, when they go back to school, they will have to deal with what they have left out. Even though they might be in their new class, they will have to, that is why the engagement is continuing. We will have to ensure that every aspect of the curriculum which has not been covered is covered.
Where did we leave them?
The junior high schools had 12 weeks to complete the academic year.
Okay.
So the deficit, as we are confronted now, is 12 weeks for the junior high schools, and then 16 weeks for the second semester of the first years of the senior high schools. And so the junior high school goes with from KG1 up to junior high school 1.
Do I get the sense that we're promoting all of them to the next class?
That is how the picture looks like. That's how the picture looks like. You see, what we should bear in mind and what we are concerned about is that if these students do not move, there is a bigger issue out there. Every year, about 600,000 children of age 4 move into KG1. If we don't move, those 600,000 children cannot go to school. And that is, to us, that is the issue. We should also bear in mind that there is some international standard that we need to meet. At age 4, the child should be in KG1. If we don't move, we miss that age. Because age will not be waiting for those children. They will have moved to 5. And therefore, the idea is that once we've gotten the final years to successfully complete their programs, they will move on. Once the final years exit, then everybody can move. Then once everybody moves, then those in the, we are expecting KG1, they can then also enter the school system. What is important is for us to continue to engage all the stakeholders to make sure that we don't lose out on the curriculum as the president directed.
Who is in charge of the private schools? There are schools that are online. Some of them have even started another academic calendar. Are they controlled by the Ghana Education Service? Do you control the entire education structure?
Now, let me say that until the establishment of the National Inspectorate Board, the Ghana Education Service had additional responsibility of supervising and managing the private schools. But with the establishment of the National Inspectorate Board, that responsibility has shifted to the National Inspectorate Board. So the Ghana Education Service is now, let's say, a competitor to the private schools. Because Ghana Education Service is providing education in the public sector, while the private schools do the same work in the private sector.
They don't take any directions from you? Because I know at least of a school that was waiting to hear the announcement, and then they would plan, even though they're a private school.
The announcement comes from the president, not from Ghana Education Service. So the announcement is from the president. And when the president announces, then our responsibility is to ensure how we can effectively and efficiently implement those announcements.
So do you, by saying that, do you expect that the private schools, okay, so I guess once it's the president announcing that schools will reopen in 2021, even if you're a private school, you have to go according to that directive.
Yes, because you see, the president is not announcing in a vacuum. We have a national situation on our hands.
But isn't that driven by the situation in our public schools, which is not exactly the same story with the private schools? We have classes, smaller class sizes. You can have 19, 20 in some private schools. That situation is entirely different with the public schools.
You see, that's why I'm saying that the details and the nitty-gritties can be looked at and can be worked out. But the general perspective is that the president's priority, as he indicated, is to ensure the safety and protection of every Ghanaian child, irrespective of whether you are in private school or you are in public school. So what is important is probably for the stakeholders to continue to engage and see what are the issues that need to be addressed.
Well, he's here for all of us, so I want to encourage parents to join this conversation. We've got questions bothering you with this latest announcement and arrangement. Kindly give us a call on 0302-211-69-102, 0302-211-69-102. We'll also take some comments on Facebook, so you can give us a call now and ask all the questions that you want to ask. I want to draw your attention to the call by the private school associations. There are two groups that are disappointed with this latest arrangement and announcement. There was a certain committee that was set up. Were they included?
Yes, they were. The National Association of Private Schools, the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, NAPS, is fully represented on that committee.
What was their contribution? I mean, what were they? Is the committee's work complete?
The committee's work is not complete. The committee's work was to advise on how, like I said, for example, if you are shifting the academic year to January, or you are shifting the academic year to January, what should go in? How do we manage it to ensure that we don't lose, the children don't lose out? Those are the things that the committee is looking at, and they are fully represented there.
Let's take some phone calls. Timothy is in Cape Coast. Good morning, Timothy. Hello, Timothy. Let me go to Majid. If Timothy cannot hear me, Majid is in Tamale. Good morning, Majid.
Good morning, Mamavi.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. What's your comment, your question?
Please, Mamavi, I have some concerns about the reopening of the schools.
Let's hear it.
Yes. It's like private schools are totally ignored, because when you look at the whole structure, unlike the last time when government came on and announced it to the general public that private schools in nature will be considered in a NPSSI. And up to now, almost all the private schools that have actually applied, none of the schools. Hello?
None of them have done it.
Hello, Majid.
Hello?
Did I lose Majid?
Hello, Mamavi. I'm still on the line.
Okay, Majid, wrap it up for me.
So looking at the issue, almost all those of us who have applied for the NLBSSI, none of us have the support. And for now, we are concerned about our teachers. Our teachers are suffering. We are suffering. We are suffering. Even currently, schools with final year, private schools with final year, maybe junior high schools with a final year. Look, when the One Hospital initiative was also implemented, in Tamale here, we have 32 private schools with junior high schools. And out of these 32 private schools that we have in Tamale, only 5 of them are saving the One Hospital for the final year students. We've been complaining, we've been running up and down. We haven't gotten any solution to that. So with this nature, we are appealing to the president, we are appealing to the government. They should do something about it.
Okay.
Because the private school, that is in fact, we are with the kind of pains we are going through. We express it by our facial, unless you are in the heart. So please, Mama V, with your due respect, you know you, the multimedia journalist, you are too closer. So you help us to put this thing through. Thank you very much.
Let's try and get a response for you, but let's see if I still have Timothy. Is Timothy on the line?
Yes.
Okay.
Mama
Timothy, good morning to you. Let's hear you.
All right. Mama V, good morning to you. And I also greet your guest in the studio. I don't know whether I'm getting the sense that they are going to add a year to the SHS or something, because he said they are moving. If they are moving, it's suggestible to me that they may be adding a year or something to the span of their school.
When you say are they adding a year, are they staying longer than usual?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Secondly,
when are the universities reopening? I want to find out.
The universities?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Timothy. Let's hear from Raymond. Raymond is in Bongo. Hello, Raymond.
Hello.
Yes, Raymond. Thanks for your call. Let's hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please, when the president... hello?
Raymond, you're on air. We can hear you.
Okay. I believe when the president gave the address, he didn't say something about the tertiary students. So I want to know something about that.
Tertiary students.
Apart from that too. Apart from that too, some parents didn't understand the explanation that the man is giving. It's like they are not talking the president about this. So how are they going to explain to parents so that they didn't make the government unpopular? Because parents are complaining that, oh, the government don't want their children to go to school. So I want the man there to, how education, what are the education that they are going to give to parents so that they'll know
why the children are not going back to school.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right, I appreciate your comments and your questioning. Thank you very much. If you also got a question, kindly give us a call. Sir?
Right. Let me say that the first questionnaire issue about support for private schools, I'm sure that I'm not competent enough to comment on what type of support private schools require to be able to run. So I will leave that.
But you appreciate their plights, right?
I do. I really do appreciate their
because unlike the public schools where the teachers are being paid.
Right. In fact, let me be honest with you. At some of the discussions at the committee you referred to level, this issue of private schools and their teachers came up for discussion. Yes. So we do appreciate those concerns, and we are equally as worried because they are all Ghanaians and they all need to survive. So we are very much concerned about that. On the issue of the allegation that we are adding one more year, I can say for now, no. We are not thinking of adding another year. What we are thinking of now is how do we complete the academic year, which have been adversely affected by COVID-19. Now, probably let me explain something. Our recommendation to the president on the SHS2, SHS1, fundamentally, we will have wished that the schools did not go back until January, fundamentally.
All the schools, including?
All the everybody.
Okay.
But we felt that, then we looked at the impact assessment and realized that those in JHS2 will be moving to their final year next time. Those in SHS2 will be moving to their final year next time. Now, the impact on them will be severer. So we should find a way for them to complete their academic year. And that is why it was agreed that they could do the third term, as it were, even though we cannot even have the full complement of the period. But they could do the third term so that we could reduce the amount of adverse impact they will have when they move into their final year. Now, let me explain why KG, especially KG1 to, let's say, P3, cannot go to school. Their curriculum, as under this standard-based curriculum, is to be taught primarily through play. In fact, their sitting arrangement, their interaction in the classroom, whatever they do is revolving around play and interaction.
And that's contact.
And that's contact. And under COVID-19, the primary role that everybody should be is expected to play now is to keep social distancing. That is why we are not even allowing several activities like sporting, like culture. So it was going to be very difficult to teach these children minus play. It cannot happen unless we decide to revert. And again, at that age, KG1, at age 4, how do you expect them to wear masks? How do you expect them to keep social distance? We're looking at a situation where, at that level, somebody will even pull somebody's mask and use it for other purposes. And so you can imagine. So we felt that it was not advisable.
But if you go beyond grade 3 or class 3?
Yeah, but you see, if you listen to the president, the decision was that we need to keep social distancing. So the schools need to spread out. And don't forget that at the basic school level, sometimes the population could be that large. The population is spread out. And you know, in some areas, the type of infrastructure that we have, how do you spread out? How do you keep the protocols. So we found that it will be more challenging in dealing with that category. You see, we are fortunate as a country, and we appear to be underrating the situation we find ourselves, because probably by grace of God, the way the virus has behaved in our country. In other areas where the COVID is very active and live, we must be very careful. Now, the very people who are craving for the children to go back to school, if there is one case of COVID outbreak in the KG class, it will be the same people who shout loudest. So we need to be careful.
Is there a date in January for the reopening?
For the moment, as I sit here, I will not be able to give you a date, 10th or 9th or 11th or 12th. No, not. But we are working towards that, and very, very soon we will give an indication of which date we are looking at in January.
Okay. We're going to go to Facebook pretty shortly, because we have some comments on Facebook as well. If you've got a question, kindly give us a call and ask the GES. Let's go to the phone lines now. Daniel is joining us from Latabiokoshi. Hello, Daniel. Good morning. Good morning, Daniel.
Yeah, hello, good morning.
Yes, sir. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead with your question.
Yes.
But Daniel, can you kindly turn down the volume on your television set so we don't get the feedback?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's go.
Good. I want to find out from
my guests.
All right. Okay. All right. Good. I think it's better now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, hello.
Daniel, please go ahead.
All right. Okay. Good morning to you. Good morning to your guests, and then good morning to your viewers. I want to find out from your guest concerning the private schools. We now have schools that have come out with online learning. As you are talking to you now, they have completed their second term. They are starting their third term probably next week. And for my school, they are charging. They want money. And so if we are not supposed to go to January, does it mean all that our children are doing for now is not important and will not be counted? And so what is the way forward? Some of them are still insisting that we should pay this amount of money, and some of them are huge. So what do we do? What's the way forward? Will they communicate to them that should they also hold on? Because as I'm speaking to you now, our awards, they are done with second term, they are done with third term, and so we are now moving to a new academic year.
Yeah.
According to the plan. And so,
let me ask you though, Daniel, are you comfortable with the online session? Are you comfortable with the classes as it is for your children?
We are not too comfortable, because you will leave the gadgets at home. The children will not be able to concentrate well. They will not even understand well. And so there are still challenges, but we still believe we have to move on.
Okay.
So this also come with extra cost. You have to get data for Zoom and all that.
I'll get my guest to answer the issues that you raised earlier. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Daniel. Let's go to Lawson. Lawson is in Takrady. Good morning, Lawson.
Good morning, Mama V.
Yes, sir. Let's hear your thoughts.
Okay, good morning to your viewers as well. My main concern here is about teaching the second term. I don't know if it's the third term. The honorable minister there was talking about that into January. Now, because he wants us to finish the third term, I mean the syllabus. If you check the curriculum that the primary are using, the standard base, you realize that some topics in class 4, if you go to class 5, you meet the same things there. But there's a little knowledge that has been added. What can't we just, I suggest that we omit the third term and then continue with the term that is supposed to start on January, the actual term. And then what we do is that we can just briefly find a way to treat the previous things that we were supposed to learn in the subject. So, for instance, mathematics, if it is counting, maybe class. So we teach something small in class 4, something that is related to that. We, the students, will understand. Then we build upon it with the class 5 knowledge.
Okay.
And then we are gone.
All right.
And instead of trying to postpone the whole term there, I see it to be something that will actually worry us.
Okay. Mr. Lawson, you're a teacher in a public school?
Yes, I'm a teacher in private school, Barbara International School, Aframdo.
Okay, so this is just your suggestion. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Erasmus, okay. Erasmus is in Wa. Erasmus?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You're Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Madam V.
Good morning.
Yeah, I just want to say that concerning this whole Russia, I think that as a country, if GES are the ones that are advising government, I think that they need to sit up. Because the whole holistic approach of locking down all schools when you know that there are most of the schools in the villages, most of the schools that are already government schools that are already behind. When you talk of Kumasi, Takrade, Accra, and others, those in the remote areas are not even aware of anything. They are not even aware of anything.
When you say they are not aware of anything, what exactly do you mean?
They are not aware of any COVID-19. And yet, the children are forced. Look, Mama V, there are a lot of things happening in the villages that GS is not in touch with. A lot of the girls are getting married, getting pregnant.
Okay, let's stay on course here, Rastos. What's your suggestion? What do you think should have been done?
Is that there should have been a case by case. GS should have engaged the district directors in their respective place to be able to know where, how to implement this thing.
Okay.
Now, most of the teachers, when they are resisting, most of the teachers, and Mama, I'm telling you, not on DSA, but most of the teachers are resisting because they are not engaged in businesses. So when they are talking about this thing, because they are getting their pay comfortably, when they are talking about reopening the school, they are resisting.
Okay. Erasmus, I appreciate. I really get the point that you're making, and my guest has taken notes. So he's going to address that. Fatau is in Mbole. That's the last call for this round, and then we'll get the issues addressed. Fatau?
Good morning.
Good morning, Fatau. Let's hear you.
Good morning to your panel. Please, my concern is to the private teachers. I believe life first before education. And if the president is telling lies to sit at the various houses to go to school, I believe he is also taking good care of ourselves. And not in concern of going to school to get education and later Mama, you let's look at in this perspective. How can they still go to school with the condition and you will return to the hospital? I'm very disappointed when I heard it from the private teachers. Very, very disappointed.
Okay, Fatau, well, thank you very much for sharing. I know that you've taken notes of some of the issues.
Right. The first issue is about fees being charged by private schools who are running online programs.
That's really none of your business.
I will encourage the person to take it up with the National Inspectorate Board.
Okay.
I will encourage the person to do that.
But I've got a question on that. Their academic calendar has nothing to do with the GS.
We run a uniform academic calendar in Ghana. And everybody must conform, especially those who run the curriculum that is being run in Ghana.
Okay. So there are two categories. There are those who are strictly doing the international, the Cambridge.
Yes.
And there are those who are doing parts of GES.
Yes.
Those schools are supposed to be aligned with your structure.
Yes.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we all write the same exit examination. And therefore, they must all follow the same
and if they don't?
If you don't, you see, what will happen is at the end of the day, you will have to wait to write the same exam. So what will have happened? Because if you finish and the public system is not ready to write the exam, you will have to wait. So that is the scenario that we will get. But let me quickly address the issue of whether we should not have stripped off the third term and continue. But the questioner himself also ended up by saying that there are some of the topics that you need to teach some other foundation before you can build upon. That is the idea. So the principle is that when in January we even reopen, we are not moving straight to the new class program. You need to deal with what was left out at the current term, and then we build on. What we are planning, that's why I said the engagement will continue. What we are planning is how do we ensure that we are able to deal with what is left out and then build upon it with the new academic year.
Okay.
there will be several implications. There will be several implications in starting the academic year in January. And all these things need to be looked at and worked on. Okay. And we will be engaging the various stakeholders to address some of those concerns.
Okay, there was also an issue with the wholesale approach.
Yes. You see, again, I'll go back to my earlier comment I made that probably it's because we have been fortunate enough by grace of God that the virus has not behaved like in some other countries. So some people even think that there's nothing called COVID-19. But some people think that, and some people even think that...
Well, to be fair, there are some areas that are not recording cases.
Right, but as I speak to you now, there are even some regions where there are no active cases. Are we saying that those areas, the children should go back to school?
That's the suggestion.
Right, that's a suggestion. But
because their parents going to the farm,
yes,
and leaving their children, their parents going to the markets with nobody to take care of their children.
But in Accra, people go to work and leave their children. In Takrady, people go to work and leave their children at home. So it's the same scenario. But you see, the president's fundamental responsibility is to ensure that everybody is safe. And the president cannot sit in Accra and say, oh, let's say Upper West, there's no active case. So your environment is free from any restrictions. We live in one country, we move around, we interact. So we need to ensure that uniform policies and programs apply. If you even, like I said earlier, if even you say that students in one category should go to school while the others stay at home, at the end of the day, are they going to write the same exit? Are they going to write the same exit exam? If they're going to write the same exit exam, who would they write yes differently from the rest? Because we are in a unitary state which run a uniform program, we need to run some of these things on a uniform basis, so that there are no distortions and there are no distractions.
Okay, so from the GS perspective, what are we doing to engage those children who are home?
Right. If you remember, when the president directed that schools should close, he also directed that we should come up with programs and activities that will ensure that academic work was not disrupted for these children. And therefore, we have been working on that. I can tell you that we have worked with various media institutions, and we are also working online. There are also other forms of e-learning mechanism that we are using. For the senior high schools, for example, we have what we call the iBox, which is an online program developed by Sendros. And so we will engage, and we expect that the senior high school 1, for example, will continue to, those who will have access will continue to engage on the iBox system and continue to have access to academic work. We have developed some learning programs with GBC. We have a channel specifically designated for learning.
So are we getting, is there feedback? Do you know how well these initiatives that you've just talked about,
yes, we
going down on the ground?
We have been doing some survey. The report is not yet out.
Okay.
But we are carrying out some survey. But the fundamental issue we have come up with is access to every part of the country. That is one of the major challenges that has come up, that we are trying to see what we did that we can do. So we are working together. Of course, with support from some developed partners to even look at specific districts and specific locations on what is it that we can do for them, especially when they have little or no access to the general internet system.
Okay. All right. There was also a question about the universities.
Right.
And the tertiary institutions.
I deal with pre-tertiary.
So this is not your area at all?
No, that's not my area.
All right, great. Let's wrap up with the comments on Facebook, because we also have some comments on Facebook. If we're ready, let's bring those comments to you. Okay, here we go. Oops. Can we just open the page again so we can read those comments before we go? But if you still have questions, I guess you can give us a quick call now before we wrap up on this. Pepsin Stevens says, good morning. When will tertiary schools reopen? Well, that's not the area of my guest, so we can talk about that. Joseph Safo says, I want to find out if schools are allowed to organize extra classes now for students that are in the house. Noted. This one says, when are the level 100 university students going back to school? Okay, my producer, call. It looks like you have to put a call through so we can clear this issue up. Let's get an official to help us with the tertiary, because that's an issue that's coming up. But somebody's asking if they can hold extra classes.
For the children who are at home. Yeah. How do they do that? How do they do that? Because if you want to organize, if it's online, it's a different subject altogether. But if you want physical face-to-face contact,
the schools are shut.
Yes.
So you can't have access to any school at all.
So how do you do that? Right. But what we intend to do, and I'm saying that as part of the details, working on the details, we are even looking at the feasibility. I'm not saying we have, but we are looking at the feasibility of discussing with the staff whether we cannot even add some additional hour to the normal school time, so that they could, those who are going back to school can even capture. Because as I told you, the senior high schools require 16 weeks and the junior high school require 12 weeks. The period available is not up to that number of weeks. So what is it that we can do to make sure that we can make up for the difference? These are all the details that we need to engage the various stakeholders and deal with.
Okay, let's get some more questions on Facebook. Benjamin says, kindly ask him when the original transfer release letters will be ready for us. That's a question coming from Benjamin in Y in the Upper West region. All SHS and JHS students should return to school. Well, that isn't exactly the call, Kojo. Michael says, what about the undergrads? Are we part of the January? Well, that's not clear exactly. This one says, what about the tertiary? We're trying to get a response on that. This one says, okay. Latif is on the phone. Hello, Latif. Good morning, Latif.
It is Frank.
Okay, Frank in Adan. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mamavi.
Yes, Frank, let's hear you.
Yeah, please, what I want to ask is that, I want to ask, good morning.
Frank, go ahead with your question.
Okay, I want to ask, it's like now that the schools has been closed down, the private schools,
Okay, Frank, I guess you have to call again. And when you do, turn down the volume on your television sets so we avoid the delays and we can have a straight conversation. We're wrapping up, though, so you have to call right about now. Any final comments that you want to make before we wrap up this conversation,
right.
sir?
My final call is that we are not in normal times. Some of the things that we are doing might not be normal, but we have a new normal. And all what we need to do is to adjust and make some sacrifices to make sure that these things work. The paramount interest or the paramount consideration is the safety and protection of everybody in the school environment. And that is why some of these decisions are being made. Ordinarily, everybody will have been happier to have everybody back to school. In fact, some people have even started complaining that the children are putting on too much weight, and we might soon have issue with weight in the system. Some parents are complaining children are eating too much. Some are complaining children are creating so much distraction at home. So there are several concerns, and we will have wished that everybody had gone back to school. But the environment in which we find ourselves is such that we need to tread cautiously. And I believe that that's exactly what we are doing. Our assurance to the whole country is that we will try as much as possible to ensure that the academic work is not, the academic work of the children are not unduly adversely affected.
Okay. So what we do know is that children are definitely going back in January, except that we don't know the dates yet. Yes. Okay. All right. Mr. Anthony Boateng, I thank you very much for making yourself available and taking all the questions and all the comments. But suggestions are still welcome, right? Because you're still trying to figure out how things would exactly be done.
We'll continue to welcome ideas and suggestions.
All right, great. My guest is a Deputy Director General, the Ghana Education Service. He's in charge of management services. Thank you all for being a part of our conversation. You're watching the AM show. We've got plenty more to come. Please stay with us. We've got an eye also at the Kotoka International Airport. Remember, today is the day that the airport is open to travelers. So we're going to be monitoring that situation. We've got a live report coming from the airport.
$97 days to the elections, and we, of course, are your election headquarters. We have to bring you up to speed as a show, that is the AM show, on all that has been happening around us related to this election, 2020 in December. We will bring you what the final head will be and the decision point from voters across the country. But as we've been doing a week or two from now, we've been looking at what your own concerns based on a question we straight away just posed to you as citizenry. And today's question is very simple. Will infrastructure inform your decision to vote? And that's what we're bringing to you on Voters' Voice.
You know, if you are studying and you don't have that maximum strength, going up and down, sometimes you get home, the child gets home and so tired that he can't even go back in revising the notes he's been given or doing his assignments and those things. But if the person is resident on campus, there is room for him to sleep. He's just on campus, so there's nothing like long distance traveling or something like that. It will help the child. It will reserve some energy for the child to use in revising his notes and also going back to doing his assignment. And when it comes to the health aspect, you know, when there are no hospitals, there are no infrastructure. There might be some available, but not too enough. Now we've heard of a lot of patients going to the hospital and not getting beds and not getting space even to put the beds if there are. And people have really passed on because of this issue, not getting a place to sleep for the doctor to have proper attention of taking care of them. So if there is this government or there is this person in power who is giving us this infrastructure to, you see, life is more important than anything. So if lives are being saved because of infrastructure and someone is in to provide and is doing it, it will really inform my decision in bringing the person on again to carry on in doing those things. And it's very, 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 very important to have infrastructure because it helps in saving lives. So as you ask, it will be one of the major things I will look at in voting.
Well, it will be a factor because when we talk about development, we cannot sideline infrastructure. So if we are making assessment on the government in terms of what he has been able to do to inform us in making a decision in come 7 December, infrastructure will be a key.
Adoba mama tonze. Abambia ba. Oya kwan osisi school dan. Osisi school dan. Oya dan road na de. Inti. Ame mum abambia ba motor man. Because of phobia need more baby motor man.
Infrastructure near one. Because on na shema improve to Juma, a Juma so here the Ebe Kuru. There's a factory, now see a school down near there, about Buama, and Juma the Ebe Kuru.
When I look at the infrastructure, about the schools, and that was the first thing I'm just looking for, the education and the security forces. They are doing so very well.
And these are views from normal residents from Takoradi, the Western Regional Capital. But it's where we bring in contributor and also main person to speak to on this. Dr. Ali Seidu is a senior lecturer at the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana. Joining us. Good morning to you, Dr. Ali Seidu.
Good morning, Mr. Walker.
Now, you've had those responses. How would you describe those responses from ordinary voters?
I think the ordinary voter is actually looking at issues and policies that can directly impact their lives. Infrastructural development indirectly affect the life of the ordinary citizen. And that is why, depending on the level of development of your democracy, technically speaking, what I have been able to put up and what I am going to put up in terms of infrastructure may not even be a major campaign issue. If you go to the US, Britain, North America, and largely Europe, the voters look at specific policies that has been formulated and implemented, and that has a direct impact on the lives of the ordinary citizen. Infrastructure indirectly does that. So I think we should expand the debate on infrastructure to just move beyond how many number of infrastructure within which specific area I have been able to put up, and directly weigh on the impact of those infrastructure on the lives of the ordinary human being. For example, if you build a road, if I do not have a car, how do I use that road? If you build a hospital and I'm not sick, or even and I'm sick and I go to the hospital and I can't afford healthcare, how do I access it? If you build school and I do not have money, how do I pay school fees and attend school? If all these things have what? An element of indirect impact on the life of the ordinary voter. So it is no longer about how many infrastructure I've been able to put up, but how, to what extent has that infrastructure affected my life as an ordinary citizen? That's the first thing we have to look at, the impact. Two, we also have to bring in, expand the whole debate of the infrastructure to look at the cost. How much money has been spent to put up that infrastructure? And has there been cost-benefit analysis? Has there been value for money? Or in most cases, the ordinary Ghanaian has always been cheated in the cost of what? Procuring or prosecuting the infrastructure development. And the third component we need to expand this debate to include is the level of maintenance. To what extent is it relevant if you put up an infrastructure or a building and then you do not take it because it belongs to the state, you do not take the necessary measure to maintain it over the years? If you go to the developed world, and even when Britain was the height of the dominant power in the global world, most of the infrastructure that was put up at that particular place are still legacy projects. Some of them, the outside may look very terrible or not that attractive. But if you go inside the building and you see the level of maintenance culture that is being exhibited, you marvel. And that saves the citizens a lot of money, because if you are able to maintain it very well, you do not have to spend so much time putting up the same infrastructure again elsewhere when the old one is not properly maintained. So first of all, I think the sentiments being expressed by the ordinary voter is actually geared towards policies and programs and promises that directly impact their lives. And that is the whole concept of development. If you read the works of Professor Amartya Sen, he talks about development. No, it's not about just uplifting the ordinary life of the ordinary people, but development is also about what? Expanding the various freedoms and choice of the ordinary human being to make life decisions. So if you are able to put in a lot of measures in place, I will now decide which one of them is better for me, rather than just saying that you people, you need wood. When you build wood, then you'll be able to expand your businesses. What about if wood is not what I need? So the first thing about the focus of development is the ordinary human being and expanding his life choices and freedom. And the whole concept about democracy is about enhancing the ordinary lifestyle of the human being and the citizen, and making him and affording him the ability to participate in life decision-making processes that directly or indirectly impact his ordinary living lifestyles. So it's all about the people. And infrastructure indirectly impact on the life of the people. So moving forward, we need to expand that debate just beyond how many numbers have been able to put up within what number of period or time, but how does that impact on the life of the ordinary citizen? That's the key question.
Now, when you look at the Human Development Report, indeed, the latest as they have it as published, we historically have made enormous progress from the 90s till now, and I'm talking about the 90s because that's when, from 1992, we say we wanted to democratize and so consolidate what we're practicing currently. Now, for the voters, are they able to see through, have a proper observation, and so assess what sort of infrastructural development that are promised them, and so that become the decision point for which they decide to vote?
I think infrastructure is one of the things that the voter can easily identify and assess when they are promised by politicians. And that is why it is one of the most easiest projects or policies in manifesto that if citizens really want to seek accountability, they can easily do. Because these are visible, one, and you can also access them, go into them, look at them from the outside, and be able to tell the level of quality of engineering that went into it. And based on that, as an ordinary citizen, you can actually tell whether what has been put out there amounts, that's value for money terms, the kind of budget that has gone into it. One thing about infrastructure is also that it kind of provides legacy. They are legacy projects. And most politicians want their names to be associated to that kind of legacy projects. So, for example, if you drive past the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, you forever remember His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for putting it up. If you have ever used the Tema Highway, you will forever remember Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You see, if you have ever accessed electricity through the Akosombo Dam. So these are kind of legacy projects. Politicians usually like it for two reasons. One, because it gives them the opportunity to leave a lasting impression on the lives of the voters. One, and two, they can easily identify their performances to those particular infrastructure because they are visible and people can see them. One disadvantage strongly with this kind of things is that most politicians are able to take advantage of the procurement process and benefit on the sidelines, putting up these things. Sometimes they inflate the cost of the projects to be able to make a lot of money. So if it is something that is visible, something that people can easily relate with, something that people can easily identify, then it stands to reason that politicians will always want to do that thing. And when it is an election year, they will quickly cite them as promises that they have been able to achieve. The good aspect of it is also that citizens can also visit these things, look at them, and be able to decide whether what has been promised is done, but also done to the standard of quality that is beneficial to the people. I'll give you one example, Roland. Recently, when the vice president did the manifesto thing that the MPP has been able to complete and accomplish, the MPP's track record in terms of manifesto, you see that citizens were able to quickly use the tracker and go to the kind of project sites that were said to have been executed. And they were able to quickly tell whether this was actually done or not done, or the level of completion rate, but also the quality of work that went into it. So infrastructure is good because people can use it to readily assess the performance of a government. But it also has a side step. The other thing has to do with the fact that if you put those infrastructures up, how does it directly benefit the people? I still want us to look at it beyond just the numbers, but also see the quality, level of maintenance, but also what the impact on the lives of the people. So it is a good thing. People can assess it. People can use it to vindicate your promises. And then politicians can easily point to you and say that I've done so much within this number of years or time period.
In the developed world, building an interchange or an overhead or a highway definitely is not going to give Trump a lot of votes because they have saturated projects or infrastructural actions that have been taken there. But we also do know that social media has made the world closer. So they look at YouTube elsewhere and they see what is out there and they would want it same in their country. But if you look at what we need, how do voters then make the determination that a promise of infrastructure, which is seen, and then a promise of a welfare package or policy, which is transient or not seen, either are related, are equal, or one is above the other, when they want to make the decision to vote?
So in this instance, I think I'm assuming that voters will largely look for policies that they feel, policies that impact their lives, even if it is physically not visible. So let's pick the free senior high policy of this government. Free Senior High is not an institution. It's not like a structure that you can see. But people are able to feel the impact of that policies on their lives, especially parents that have their kids going to public schools and they are not paying school fees, can realize the direct impact of that policy on their lives. But Free Senior High is not an infrastructure. If you are looking at this whole concept of hot meals that was given to people, or the kind of social intervention program that this government put up during the COVID era to help people who have lost their jobs and businesses that are struggling. To those businesses and individuals who are receiving this package, it directly impacts on their lives. But you will not see it in terms of visible infrastructural terms. People are able to access. Even if you go back to history, people have always talked about the Achampong era, even though it was a military regime, by virtue of the fact that they implemented policies that directly led to the development of this country, including Operation Feed Yourself and Operation Feed Your Industries. The Operation Feed Yourself initiative actually brought everybody back to the whole concept of traditional agriculture. People were planting, people were growing, people became agriculturalists, food became abundant, and people were able to make money. So I learned during holidays, university students will go to the farm, cultivate, harvest, and get money, and come back and pay their school fees. So it is not an infrastructure. But even when we still study politics in Ghana, we still make references to those twin pioneering policies of that particular regime. It's just like saying planting for food and jobs. This is also not an infrastructure, but it is a kind of policy that creates an impact on the life of the people. So it is not just about having a visible developmental project that you can reference in talking about your achievements, but it is about putting up policies, formulating policies that directly can impact on the life of the individual and give him that life choices that is needed in development to be able to aspire to greater heights. I'm not by this saying infrastructure development is not important. It is, but it kind of directly impact. We are looking at, in these circumstances, if you ask me to vote in December, infrastructure development will not affect so much of my vote because it indirectly impacts my life. I'm looking at something that directly have an impact on my life as an individual. And if that existed, I'll look at the political party that actually implemented it. If it doesn't exist, I'll carefully scrutinize the manifestos of all the political parties and see which one of them realistically can meet the needs that I have that can directly impact my life. And that will be one of the serious determining factor. Infrastructure is good, but it has a kind of limit, the extent, because it is kind of a facilitator. It facilitates that direct impact on the life of the people that we are talking about. When there are actually other policies that can directly impact on the life of the citizen. But political parties, in terms of priority, I think both must be considered, because if you go to some specific regions in this country, they are in dire need of some level of infrastructural development to be able to upgrade their lives. If you go to those particular areas, those things are very key. If you go to some other areas, infrastructure of that kind may not necessarily impact their lives. So we have to disaggregate the voter preferences to the level of social status and social equality, so that based on that, we will know what to do when we go where. But we shouldn't use a one size fits all policy wherever we go. Disaggregated needs is the best way to actually ascertain what the people need at what particular point in time and where, so that you do not go and do things that will never lead to them voting for you, if indeed that's not what they needed.
Professor Joseph Stiglitz, he is said to be somebody who is a proponent of development economics, and that's what he does. And when he was marking 50 years of his teaching in 2015, the World Economic Forum of the World Bank decided to have a whole lecture or a whole forum for him. And one of the impact they said he's made, indeed across all the publications he's made, is that the focus of countries on macroeconomic indicators to spur their development should not be the way the development of the world should go. Rather, governments in developing countries need to focus on issues that affect people and not drive their citizens crazy on variables like GDP, indicators like employment rates, when it doesn't impact directly in relation to how much is spent to create jobs, for example, and develop their countries. Well, my assumption is that he's saying we shouldn't be using the macroeconomic variables to be the indicators for development. If that is the case, what should be the paradigm shift of our government in Africa or Ghana that resonates with the needs of the people in relation to our discussion we're having now?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. If you go back to the early 1990s, the whole discourse of development actually shifted from the early 1990s, from the state-centric approach or the use of econometric and GDP growth to measure development, from looking at the human development. Now, development in the economy, building a solid economy, is a means to an end in development discourse. The end in every development is the people. Having a solid economy can actually enhance your propensity to provide for the needs of the people. So economic growth is actually a means to an end in the discourse of development and not an end in itself. So if you go back to the early 90s, I think 1994, when the first World Development Report was written, you are looking at the works of Amartya Sen, Mahmoud Al-Haq, Martha Nussbaum, and all those scholars. They propose that development is not just to what extent your economy grows, but how do you translate that economic growth to broadly enhancing the welfare, the well-being, and then the general living condition of your people. And I believe since then, instead of just using GDP growth, GNP growth, countries are now using the Human Development Index that looks at the level of health, education, social amenities, infrastructure, and all those things. They now count. Even now, we have what we call the happiness index, where people even look at the level at which citizens in the country are happy every day. And that leads to measuring the level of development that exists in that particular country. So when you juxtapose this shift in the discourse of academia vis-a-vis development to what our politicians do now, it's telling us that we need to actually refocus and recalibrate what we promise and what we do as governments. Development should be holistically geared towards enhancing the welfare and the well-being of the individual. Whatever thing that helps us to achieve that, including economic growth, including infrastructure and all those things, are rather means and not an end in themselves. So when we are formulating our manifesto and policies, we should always focus on the individual and what the individual may need at what particular point in time. Development strategy doesn't come in a kind of one-size-fits-all policy. Every state, depending on the level of development and economic might, may have disaggregated development needs. So the fact that country A is doing A, B, C, D doesn't mean that country B should also do the same. Development is local and development is needs-based. So political parties should look at their local environment and do a kind of needs assessment of the people. And the needs assessment and disaggregated needs of the people should rather be what drives the manifesto that they put together. And that should rather be what they implement when they come to government. So honestly speaking, we need a little bit of recalibration in terms of what features predominantly in our manifestos and what we do when we come to government. And the priority must always be the citizen. Every development revolves around the citizen. Every development is local. And so should political parties focus when they are preparing their manifesto. There may be other variables that may affect the quality of manifesto that is being prosecuted by political parties when they come to government. But largely, the focus should be on the people. And Mr. Walker, it's not just even the concept of development, even the concept of security. In the academic literature, the concept of security has shifted largely from purely focusing on state-centric or what we call Westphalian security to actually looking at human security. So everything whether at the level of development, at the level of security, at the level of, is geared towards enhancing the welfare and the well-being of the human being. So whatever policies that we formulate as political parties, the human being must be the focus. And how we are able to make the human being prosper, progress, and then to feel worth living, the life that they are being given to live by their politicians and leaders.
In Africa, we have a whole market, 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion, and still growing. The good thing about the population in Africa, especially sub-Saharan, is the fact that we're still in the bracket of being young, very agile, a working population. So it means that we need the right sort of tools, the right sort of education to make impact. What Corona has thought at is that, well, the degrees and the formal education is good, but if you are into the provision of services, manufacturing, you do things with your hands, it enables you to improve your standards of living. What should be the main focus in relation to infrastructure and the policy interventions from these parties to meet that objective for the voters or their population? And we're talking Ghana.
Yeah, I largely think what government should do is to take decisions that generally enhances the skills and develop our human capacity base as a state. If you look at the history of development, countries that have largely succeeded actually formulated and implemented strategic policies at the infant stages of their development. Ghana is described as a middle income country. But still, if you look at the level of infrastructural growth, but also the level of clout that we have at the international level, it is still far away from similar development and clout other countries at this same level of developmental achievement are able to make. I think we are becoming too reliant on our natural resources to the detriment of enhancing and upgrading our human resource. I think the human resource is very key in either discovering, utilizing these natural resources that we have. And the natural resources are very key in actually projecting our developmental levels from where we are to where we want to be. So it's just like if you are a country and you keep developing your human resource to the level that most of the contracts you have given to foreign companies to come and work on simply because you have a human resource gap, you are able to meet that particular challenge. And then most of these developmental projects are given back to your people. The state tax these citizens and they reinvest the money back into the economy. So it is a kind of a twin policy approach where you actually develop the you actually harvest the natural resources that we have in a more environmental friendly and beneficial way. But at the same time, you also develop and build your human skills and human capacity to be able to meet the gap that might have stand your way in your quest to exploit and develop your natural resources. You look at great countries, maybe for example like Japan, which is actually the third largest economy. They do not have the kind of natural resources that we do in Ghana, but they have been able to actually invest largely in their human resource, and they are doing very well. If you go to a country maybe like India, they do not have the kind of natural resources that we have in Africa, but they have been able to choose a special aspect of development, IT, and they have built huge human capacity within that area. And when you go to almost everywhere, they export IT technicians to be able to get the needed revenue, just as we export gold and then cocoa. You go to maybe a country like Cuba. Cuba may not have all the natural resources that we have, but they have been able to develop their health system. And Cuba exports doctors to almost a lot of countries across the globe. So it is not just focusing on developing infrastructure. It's not just focusing on on continuous exploiting our natural resources, and even in some cases we even use it as a collateral to get loans and all. This is not how development should be. It is also beyond looking at the natural resources that we have, beyond looking at the infrastructure that we can put up. We should also invest hugely in our human resource. A lot of the youth population that we have in this country are all looking for white-collar jobs, government provided jobs. If we were able to, our educational standards, if our educational standards were able to give them the needed skills, especially from largely support from government, the private sector, and then the industry, these people will finish school and they'll be able to start something on their own and then go on to employ people. The level of unemployment will have reduced because we are empowering our people to build their own future, but also to employ people who would have ordinarily been waiting for government to employ them. Yeah. So if you are able to build these kind of skills and then invest in human development, we are indirectly creating job opportunities because those individuals will be able to employ them, create jobs, and employ other people. And that will have reduced the burden on government. So we should not always focus on government must do this, government must do that. Once we are able to invest profitably in certain sectors, and you also mentioned the fact that most of them work with their hands. You see, the whole concept of modernization and modernization theory speaks to the fact that we should gradually introduce mechanized ways of doing things in our day-to-day lives. It's just like if somebody is going to farm his land with a cutlass or a hoe, and somebody is going to use a tractor to cultivate. You see that the level of output and then achievement will not be the same. So we should find a way to train people in these particular skills and to empower them with the resources that they need to be able to create. And I bet you most youth don't even want to work for the government. If they had the opportunity, the capital and the skills, they would have created jobs themselves, employed themselves, and employ others. And we have to pay so much attention to investments in those sectors as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Dr. Ali Dusedu, Senior Lecturer, Political Science Department, University of Ghana, helping us. Great contribution so far on our election segment, Voters' Voice. But again, we have to remind you, it is 97 days to election 2020, and we are your election headquarters. Well, we have to straight away go to Maxwell Agbagba. He is located currently at the Kotoka International Airport, giving us an update whether in earnest we're having passengers trooping in and whether they're coming on those flights. Straight away, what can you tell us, Maxwell? As you can see, Terminal 3 arrivals.
Yeah, great. Yes, Terminal 3 arrivals we here, but not much of activity, is happening here at the Terminal 3 arrivals. In fact, information we are picking up from authorities here indicate that commercial flights, international commercial flights, are actually yet to send their schedule to the authorities, here. So what it means is that they are not expecting any international commercial flight today at the Kotoka International Airport. But what we've had, what information we're picking up is that evacuation flights and then chartered flights are coming through, but international commercial flights are unable to come through today because they would have to send their schedule to the Ghana Airport Company Limited and the authorities here, and then other measures would also have to be put in place before a full rollout. So what many were expecting, to see the Kotoka International Airport, the arrival, Terminal 3 arrival, buzzing with activity this morning. That is not the case. We're told that there will be no international commercial flight coming in today, just chartered flights that are coming in, or chartered or evacuation flights that are coming in or leaving the country. But we've been able to, we've also seen the policy guidelines for departure and arrival here at the Kotoka International Airport, and it's all in line with the strict adherence to the COVID-19 protocols. Now, if you're arriving here, aside from what we've been told, I mean, if you're arriving here at the Kotoka International Airport and you have a body temperature exceeding 38 degrees Celsius, trust me, you will not be allowed into the general population. You would have to be, treated, case managed. If you have any symptoms you're told suggestive of COVID-19, you'll not be allowed. And as you already know, all passengers would have to come in with a negative PCR test from their country of origin, and they would have to show proof of that. We are learning, or has already been put in the public domain, airlines that do not enforce or do not ensure that passengers have negative, COVID-19 PCR, test results will be sanctioned. So all persons coming in would have to, show proof of that. And then when they come in here, when they arrive here at the Terminal 3, there will be a second test that will be done as well. We know from that policy guideline also that children under 5 years are exempted from that test. In fact, when you come here to the arrival section here, where you normally find family members and friends, waiting for their loved ones, even for the chairs here, you can see that you're not supposed to sit, very close to the person who is by you. You would have to actually maintain some kind of social distance. So, for instance, in this blue chairs that you can see here, you see the sign, please do not sit here, social distancing. You would have to ensure that social distancing here at the arrival point here at the Kotoka International Airport. So you can sit here, but the next person cannot sit here. Another person can sit here, but you cannot sit here, just to ensure that you're not sitting, in close proximity. So essentially, when you come here, that is what is happening. Not much of activity happening here. I was able to check in, peep through and see what has been installed here. We are told by the persons here on the ground that the necessary COVID-19 logistics have been deployed here to the ground, and these are state-of-the-art facilities, to ensure that even for persons who are arriving, these machines will be able to pick, their body temperature even from a distance. So if your temperature is above the required threshold, there's a protocol that would have to go through, to ensure that this person is not really coming into the country with COVID-19, does not really have any symptoms suggestive of COVID-19. And there's a team here that's supposed, to take care of that. So yeah, here at Terminal 3 arrivals at the Kotoka International Airport, not much of activity, is happening today, because we're told that the airlines are yet to send, their schedules to the Ghana Airport Company Limited. The president announced the reopening of the borders on Sunday, although we had hints, of that many days before the main announcement itself.